It was a disaster. It was such a mess. That semester, one, I knew that I wasn't giving 100% to my students. I was doing the bare minimum. And then I ran into a lot of issues with this person that I was teaching with. And with this person, it was just at the end of that semester, they actually blacklisted me. It's funny now, but it was such a disastrous experience. But that was because I didn't say no when I knew I should have said no. Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Chemize and I'm so glad you're here. Today, I want to talk to you about the word no. Actually, correct that, the sentence no. I've heard people say that no is a complete sentence, and I agree, it is. But no can be so uncomfortable. We don't want to hurt people. We don't want to disappoint them. We don't want to miss out. And so a lot of times we end up saying yes to things that we should say no to. And today I want to talk to you about getting comfortable saying no. Why? Because no is a full sentence. I was listening to a podcast recently where one of my favorite female speakers was a guest. Her name is Priscilla Shara. The host asked her a question. She asked her, what is the best advice you've been given? She shared two good pieces of advice that she's received, but this is the one that I picked. And in fact, I had to pause the video, rewind, and play it again to pick up everything that she said and write it down. So I wrote it down. I'm going to read it to you. This is what she said. This advice was given to Priscilla by an older woman in her church. And this is what she told her. You cannot do 1,000 things to the glory of God, but you can do one or two. Find out what those 1, 2, or 3 things are that God is calling you to prioritize in this season. And then ask Him to give you the courage to say no to everything else. And I thought, yeah, that's it. Find out what the 1, 2, 3 things are in your life that you should prioritize. And then it can take courage to say no and discipline as well to say no, and ask God to give you those. A couple years ago, I found myself at a burnout. I was so exhausted. I was doing a lot of things. I was working full-time in consulting. I was teaching part-time at the university, and I was serving in leadership capacity in my church as well. A lot of things that really needed 100% of me. Now, working in consulting, I did that for 18 months, and yeah, that was one and done for me. But it was such a consuming role that it took up a lot of mental capacity, not just on the job, but even at the weekend. So that was very exhausting already. And then because I loved teaching, still love it, I kept teaching at the university part-time, plus the income that I was getting wasn't bad at all. And I was doing all these different things, and I got to the point where I wasn't looking forward to any of them. And it was just so bad. I knew that something had to give. I needed to say no to a few things. So some might say, oh, why would you do that? But the first thing that I said no to was serving in leadership in church. That was something that I'd been thinking about for a while, but I think I'd gotten to the point where I even started holding on to that title a little bit. And I realized, okay, if it's becoming an idol in your life, you definitely need to let it go. So I stepped down from that, and I ended up not just stepping down from leadership, but also stepping out of that team completely so that I could focus on just one team in the church and give 100%, because a part of that was also I was serving in 2 different teams in church, and I felt like I wasn't given 100% to either of them, because I'm serving here, I'm in leadership in that area, and in another area I'm also serving, and I was being torn in different directions. Something needed to give. So I let go of that leadership position. I let go of that team, which meant that I was now serving in one team in church. And then the second hard thing that I had to do was to let go of teaching, because it was a lot. Combining that, managing that alongside working in consulting full time was a lot. But here's the thing, I knew that I needed to let go of it, but I didn't let go of it when I should have. And what then happened was my teaching tanked. I knew that the next time, when I'd already planned to say no, someone came and asked me to teach a class with them. And instead of saying no, I said yes. And at this point, I was transitioning from consulting to a different role. So new role, and then I'm teaching, I'm working with someone that never worked with before. It was a disaster. It was such a mess. That semester, one, I knew that I wasn't giving 100% to my students, and that made me feel very guilty, because I really do love teaching. I'm passionate about it. I'm passionate about education. I'm passionate about the experience of the classroom. And it's so important to me that I'm giving my students everything possible. And I knew that semester that I wasn't giving them my best at all. In fact, I was doing the bare minimum. So students wouldn't complain about me and say that I wasn't a good teacher. I wasn't doing my duty of care for them. But I knew that I wasn't giving them my best. And then I ran into a lot of issues with this person that I was teaching with. I ended up saying yes to more than one class, and with this person, it was just at the end of that semester, they actually blacklisted me. It's funny now, but it was such a disastrous experience. But that was because I didn't say no when I knew I should have said no. I knew I should have said no. I talked to my mentor. We had agreed that I was going to say no to teaching, but then I got asked and I just said yes. It was such a disaster. And the next semester, no one told me. No one told me to say no. The next time I was asked, I'm like, gosh, no, my no is waiting for you in advance. So before you ask, I've already answered. But that's what saying yes and taking on too much can cause. I didn't prioritize the things that I should have prioritized. I didn't say no to the things that I knew I needed to let go of at that time. And the result was one that I didn't give my students my very best. I had a disastrous experience with the person that I taught with. Not because I wasn't because in their experience, I wasn't easy to work with, because I needed more flexibility than they were used to. But also, I realized that at the end of that semester, I actually didn't like teaching. It became this burden that I needed to be lifted off of me, and I couldn't wait for the semester to end. Every day before I got into class, I would ask myself, gosh, what did I get myself into right now? I was dreading going into class every week. It was that bad. And then I was forced to say no the next time, when the previous period should have probably been my period of rest, because I was adjusting to a new job. I was adjusting to new ways of working. And there was just so much of me that could go around to meet all these different needs. That experience taught me that, look, you've got to listen to yourself. You got to know what your priorities are, and make sure that you're saying yes to only the things that you need to say yes to. Again, going back to what Priscilla's advisor said to her, you can't do 1,000 things to the glory of God. You're going to drop so many balls. And that year, that period when I said yes to things I should have said no to, I dropped the ball big time. It was so bad that my reputation at that department at the university was tanked. It really tanked, because this person that I worked with blacklisted me. And of course, university communities are very small communities, and then if it is a discipline, it's also a department, it's even smaller. And even people who had worked with me previously had to come and ask me questions like, what happened? And because I've worked with you before, I haven't had this experience with you. And I had to do reputation management to manage my reputation. Thankfully, I had advocates, I had people who spoke up for me because I'd worked with them. They knew how I worked previously. I had people who advocated for me and insisted that I be given a second chance. But of course, I took a break, a long break, before I came back to take that second chance. And then after the second chance, I redeemed my reputation. I took a break again. So now I've learned to space myself. Yeah, don't be me. Say no the first time. Don't wait for disaster to strike before you're forced to say no. I think about Jesus. If you read the Gospels, there's so many times in scripture where the Bible says that Jesus went away by himself. People are looking for him, people are wanting to get healed, but he's going away. Because as the Bible put it, he did what he saw the Father do. He did the God things. He took the God opportunities. He didn't say yes to every single thing. He didn't respond to every single person who asked him a question. He didn't respond, especially people who were looking to just challenge him or to discredit him. But he didn't respond to every single thing that came in his sight. Of course, the things that we read a lot in the Bible are, we know that Jesus was compassionate, and he healed people, he raised people from the dead, he did all these miracles, he fed people. But every time he was always looking to the Father to see what the Father wanted him to do. He wasn't just doing things just for the sake of it. And that's the kind of person that I want to be when it comes to saying yes and saying no. I want to figure out, what season am I in my life? How much capacity do I have in this season? And what are the things that God is laying on my heart to focus on in this season, so that I can say yes to those things, and then it'll be easier to say no to other things. When you say no, it also means that you're giving yourself time for rest. Again, with Jesus, he often went away to commune with the Father, but also to rest. Sometimes he would just take his disciples with him, the 12 with him, and say, come, let's go to the other side, just him and his disciples and not all the other followers. He always made sure that, especially when he was doing a lot of the things that he knew the Father wanted him to do, that he was taking the time to recuperate, to recover before diving back into things. So that might be even just taking a weekend off to just rest. Something that I started practicing a year ago, and this was around the time that I was still in consulting, more than a year ago now actually, say about 2 years ago, I started practicing alternating weekends. And maybe it's a function of age as well, but I find that I don't have as much energy to say yes to all the different things that in my 20s I used to say yes to. But now what I do is I have alternative weekends. I have weekends that I actually just block out. No social activity, nothing. It's just a weekend of rest and recuperation. So I have this weekend, say the first weekend in the month, I go out with friends, or I go a weekend away, I hang out, I do all the social stuff. The next weekend, I know that I'm going to prioritize rest. The other weekend, yes, let's do social stuff. The other weekend, I prioritize rest. And doing that really did help me to get into a rhythm of getting adequate rest every time, so that I'm not always exhausted. I have time to just sleep in. And now that I'm single, I have room to actually prioritize myself and prioritize my rest. Because when you get married, you have someone else. Then when you have kids, that's a whole nother level. So now that I have the capacity and I have that gift of time and space, I really want to make sure that I'm prioritizing rest in my life. So that's one of the things that I do. And because I've actually made that plan as part of my calendar, it's easy for me to say no to things. So if something social is suggested in this week, on this weekend, and I know that there's no other place that rest is coming into that weekend, then I already know that I'm saying, as much as I don't want to miss out on that, I'm saying no to it. For example, I've had friends who have planned to go for archery lessons, fun stuff like that, go out on picnics, but I've had to say no to some of those things. Why? Because I'm prioritizing rest, and I'd already planned to rest at that time. Of course, if such things arise at a time when it is convenient for me, where I have that capacity and I've made room for social interactions, social activities, by all means, let's go and do that stuff. I love trying out new things like archery or hiking and things like that. But because I want to prioritize rest in my life in this season, because I know it's very important to me, and also because I just know I'm in a space where I know that I don't have to say yes to everything. It's made it easier to say no to those things when they arise. So sometimes an easy way to say no is to plan your no in advance. With teaching as well, I had to do that as well. After that disaster that I had a few semesters ago, I had to start doing that, where I now alternate. Okay, I'm going to teach this semester, then the next semester I'm not going to teach, because I want to have more time to just rest and to focus on my 9 to 5 and focus on having a social life as well. Because if I'm teaching, it also means that while I'm working full time, it also means that a lot of times I'm teaching evenings, which means you can't say yes to a lot of weekday evening activities. Think about it this way: if you're struggling with saying no, consider that every time you say no, you're giving yourself an opportunity to say a yes that matters to you. Again, figure out what your priorities are. What are the things you want to prioritize in this season? And how can you make room in your life to say yes to those things? Either that, or you're going to end up disappointing people, because then you're going to go back on your word. When you've said you'll do something for people, you end up going back on your word because a better option has come up. And that's not nice. That's not consistent. You want your yes to be yes and your no to be no. Another easy way is give yourself time to think about things. So if someone has asked you to get involved in something, to help them out with something, and you're not sure you have the capacity for it, tell them you'll think about it and get back to them. I find that when people tell me they will think about something, I'm already preparing myself. It's going to go either way. It's either they're going to say yes or they're going to say no. And I prepare myself for both responses. So if it turns out to be a no, I'm not overly disappointed, because I haven't put all my hope and all my expectations in the possibility that they will say yes. As the one who's been asked to get involved in something, give people that room to make alternative plans by telling them, oh, look, I'm going to think about this. I'm not sure that I have the capacity for it right now, but let me think about it and get back to you. And yeah, genuinely think about it. And if you find that it works for you, great. If it doesn't work for you, then you can let them down gently. Make sure that you're also respecting their time, the fact that they need to find an alternative. It might be something that's time bound, and you don't want to take forever giving them an answer when you can give them that answer much sooner. A delayed no is still a no, but a delayed no is even more frustrating, because you're not giving that person an opportunity to make alternative plans quickly and more easily. I know that I've talked a lot about saying no, but then how can you say yes? There's no point saying all these no's if you don't know the things that you want to say yes to. So make sure that you figured out what your priorities are. What do you want out of your life in this season? Do you want to spend more time with friends, one-on-one? Is that one of your yeses? Then you might need to say more no's to group gatherings and activities, so that you have time to nurture relationships one-on-one, so that you can go out for coffee, go for a walk, go for lunch, or whatever else you might plan with a friend that you want to get to know more. So ask yourself, what are the areas of my life where I've said too many yeses and I need to step out of some of those commitments? Yes, it might be disappointing, but look, make sure that you're doing things to give yourself peace of mind and to give yourself things that align with your capacity. Again, with teaching. So I got back into teaching recently, and I said yes to a number of opportunities to teach. And then another opportunity came after the fact. And it was something that I really, really wanted. But the way that it came, it didn't fit with other things that I wanted to prioritize in my life. For example, I wanted to spend more time doing more creative things. That's an area of my life that I put on the back burner for a really long time. And I thought, okay, I have more capacity now. I really do want to spend more time on that. But I had to tell you, this opportunity that came knocking was really, really tempting. And it was going to get me financially, it was going to help me to be a bit more stable. Financially, it was going to help me to achieve, saying that one more yes would have helped me to achieve a goal that I had faster. But I told this person, oh, I'd really love to teach with you, but let me think about it and get back to you on it. Honestly, in thinking about it, I was really thinking, what can I adjust in my life to make this fit? But the more I thought about it, I was dreading saying yes. Can you imagine dreading saying yes? Look, if you're dreading saying yes to anything, just say no. I mean, get on with it. I really wanted it for the financial gain, but nothing else attracted me to it. I knew it was going to take one more night away from me that I would rather spend on other things, on other creative ventures that I wanted to focus on. And I just knew that I was already taking on maybe one too many classes to teach this semester. And I ended up saying no. And I'm so glad that I did, because the moment I fired up that email and said no, I just had peace of mind that I'd made the right call, because everything else was saying this was a bad idea, even though the money was saying it was a good idea. But also, after saying no, I actually remembered that there was something that I'd committed to that was happening on those nights. I'm so grateful that I said no before realizing what I was saying yes to. I would have had to disappoint one person, because either I would have backed out of this opportunity and they urgently needed someone, or I would have backed out on this opportunity to volunteer and to serve that in a capacity that I was very passionate about. So ask yourself, what are the things that are important to you? And make sure that your yeses are aligning with those things. Pre-decide, that's a big one I found that really does help. Pre-decide that you're going to say no to this. All of those things help you, and just get into the habit of even consider that you're giving someone else an opportunity to say yes by saying no. You don't always have to be the solution. Of course, you want to be the solution, but you don't always have to be the solution. Other people should also have the pleasure of being the solution to someone else's need. So by saying no, you might be inadvertently giving someone else an excellent opportunity to say yes to something that they are passionate about. I hope this has helped you. I hope this has challenged you. And I hope that this helps you to just live with more freedom in knowing that no is a complete sentence. Of course, you can give people the courtesy of an explanation, but don't go overly into details. Sometimes just say no, and that's all they need to know. And just move on from there. Remember, you are valued, you are loved, and you are more than enough. Until next time, take care, take two to yourself, keep shining brightly.